On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, she's freed. Motor vessel Ever Forward is off the bottom of Chesapeake Bay and has been moved down below the Bay Bridge and currently at anchor off of Annapolis. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. If you're new to the channel, take a second, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. She's off. She's freed. She's been moved. Early this morning, approximately 7 a.m. Eastern time, they were able to back Ever Forward off the shoal and then tow her down the Craig Hill Channel to below the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and she is currently at anchor off of Annapolis. So let's go ahead and take a look at this operation and this entire process. So this is from WBAL TV in Baltimore, showing you Ever Forward. This is pretty late in the process. This is after she has actually crossed the Bay Bridge. Let's go ahead and fast forward here a little bit. Here she is under tow. You'll see the Atlantic Salver and the Atlantic Enterprise with tow lines attached to her. You'll have some of the smaller tugs alongside of her, nursing her along. What's really interesting to me in this process, and jumping ahead here a little bit, is she doesn't seem to be under her own power at this time. She's not making a wake. There's no power coming off the vessel. So she's completely under tow. We saw early images of her backing off at the time with black smoke coming from her stack. But right now, we're not seeing any movement of her engine. When Ever Given was pulled off the shoal at the Suez, she ran under her own power up to the Great Bitter Lake, but here Ever Forward is not. Now, I'm not sure this is an indication of damage to the propulsion or not, but that's something that's definitely going to have to be assessed. So just to go through the process here, what happened this morning. So the two anchor barges on the stern would have taken up a lot of the pressure to pull the vessel back into the channel. They were taking almost 300 tons of pull on each of the barges. At the same time, you would have had the two big tugs there, the Atlantic Enterprise and Atlantic Salver, along with a host of smaller Moran tugs that were in process there, helping ease her out into the channel. Once they got her into the channel, they were going to use her engine to back her out. Now, that's what we're not clear about, whether they use the ship's engine to back the vessel out. There's a little bit of question about that, whether or not they used it. But they have since now dragged her down, towed her down. This is just south of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. She'll be coming into the big anchorage now off of Annapolis, where a lot of ships are holding, waiting to get into the port of Baltimore. And you can see her moving along. Again, you're not seeing any wake off her stern at this time. You'll see some of the ships waiting here. Empty bulk carrier waiting to load grain. You've got a car carrier up here and then a general cargo vessel up here. And you get also the scale of how big Ever Forward is among these other ships in the anchorage and alongside the tug. You can see the empty cells where they've taken containers off her just after the forward house, about midships, forward of the aft smokestack, and then on the very stern there. So about about four rows, maybe 5 rows of containers eventually came off the vessel. We estimated it's anywhere between 500 to 550 containers came off the vessel. And you'll see her coming into position here to anchor. They're going to go ahead and anchor. You'll see her backing down at this point. The tow lines have slacked. They're going to be dropping the anchor. You drop the anchor and back down. You lay the chain out there so that it will grab and hold. And that's what we're seeing there with Ever Forward at this moment. Hop on over to marine traffic. Here is Ever Forward. You'll see her in that anchorage with all the other vessels. Here's the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, Annapolis right over here. So she's been moved down to this lower anchorage. Now, initially, she was supposed to go to Baltimore, but in yesterday's update, we talked about the fact that that had been changed, that she was going to anchor here off Annapolis. I think it's largely because they need to do a hull survey of the vessel. They would rather have her in deeper water for divers to be able to get underneath the vessel, get some images of it, and get all around. If you're in Baltimore, you're almost touching bottom in most places. It'd be hard to get underneath the vessel to get that kind of imagery. You don't want to be a diver with just a foot or two of water between you and a ship. So you want a little bit deeper water. That's probably why she's been moved down here. You can see the convoy moving northbound of the bridge right now. All the vessels that were involved in it: April Moran, Atlantic Enterprise. You can see the former the dredge there, the Dale Piatt, which had been moved off several days ago to work the lower edge of the Craig Hill Channel. Bridget McAllister, the Atlantic salver up here. And then up here, you'll see Oyster Bay. That's the original position of where Ever Forward was. And if we put in the past track here for Ever Forward, you'll see where she is basically moved from. And so she had been moved under tow the entire process. So this is the track of Ever Forward from this morning. Again, this is UTC time, not Eastern time. There's a 4-hour difference. East Coast is 4 hours behind or ahead. No, behind. I forget. Time is always fluting thing for me. So it's roughly a 4-hour difference. So it's about 6:30 right here. She comes off. She'll be backed off around 7 o'clock, as you'll see, as it moves in. Again, you had those two anchor barges on the stern pulling about 300 tons for each. You had Atlantic Salver, Atlantic Enterprise, along with a slew of other tugs, all pushing and pulling on the vessel, trying to get the stern into deep water. You'll see her start showing some movement now. You see her start moving, creeping backwards at that time. She's moving backwards. They would have to unhook her from the barges and then get her free. And then you'll see her start heading down the channel here under tow. And pretty quick operation. They were able to pull her off. They were timing it for the high tide. They knew they had about 1.5 to 2 foot tide. It'll take a little bit of time to readjust all the tugs. The smaller tugs would have held her in place in the channel. You don't want her drifting out of the channel. You just got her freed. You didn't want her going out of the channel. The big tugs, the Atlantic Enterprise and Atlantic Salver, would shift to the bow with tow lines, start pulling her. The smaller tugs would ease her through the channel to make sure she didn't kind of careen out of the channel, out of control, make sure she was maintaining herself. All traffic was held up at this point, so there wouldn't be any issue with vessels coming in. And then they slowly would bring her down the channel to the anchorage south of the Bay Bridge. We'll get more information about this. I am really hoping to get some of the key personnel involved. They've said they were going to come on after this was all over. So I'm hoping to get them on to talk about this operation in some detail here. Here's some images of her. This is her being escorted down the Craig Hill Channel. See what I mean? There's the Atlantic Enterprise, Atlantic Salver. Those are the big tugs towing her. A couple of the Moran tugs and McAllister tugs alongside with a tug at the stern, having a stern line on her to make sure, again, that she doesn't notice the black smoke coming out of her. Again, diesel engines, you don't want to see really black smoke coming out. Not exactly sure if there are engine issues or not. This is them initially taking that tow and heading southbound in the channel. You'll see her heading for the Bay Bridge, is north of the Bay Bridge at the time. And then this is kind of the formation they were in as they were coming in to anchor. So not a great deal of detail yet. Everyone was obviously busy. We had helicopters up monitoring it this morning. The salvers I talked to, and there was quite a few people, were confident they were going to get her off this time. But again, never know. But they thought that the 7,500 tons of containers, roughly about 500 containers, the ballast that was taken off, about another 3,500 tons, about 10,000 tons of ballast taken off. She was only half loaded anyway. She was going to Norfolk and New York to unload. So they were pretty confident they were going to get her off this time. If they didn't, they were going to try it again on these tides. But fortunately, she slipped off. Again, this goes back to the month of dredging that was done. Good plan to remove containers off the vessel, and then a well-executed salvage plan. Bill Doyle, the CEO of the Port of Baltimore, put out a great tweet this morning congratulating Don John Smith, the salvage company, Evergreen, the company who owns and operates the vessel, the Coast Guard, the Maryland state officials, everybody who was involved. It was an all hands evolution. And remember, no one had salvaged a vessel of this size with this type of grounding really in a long time. This vessel wasn't up against a bank. It didn't just careen with a part of it grounded. It was 100% grounded. and in pretty shallow water. So an amazing evolution. I'll keep you posted as more information comes out. Of course, we'll be doing updates on this. Look for our update on what to ship on Tuesday. We'll get that out there. And as more information comes out, we'll post it as we get it. So if you enjoyed the video and if you enjoy the channel and if you want to follow what's happening in global shipping, then I recommend take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos. As they come out, leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it across social media, and if you can, contribute to our Patreon page. We expect Ever Forward to remain at the anchorage for at least a couple of days. She may go up to Baltimore to reload containers or head directly to Norfolk to offload the remaining containers and potentially on to New York, New Jersey, and then back to Asia, probably for a dry dock. So until our next video, this is Sal signing off.